Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome back, everybody. It's 4:02 in the Pacific time zone. Radical Russ here with Left Wing Larry. We're hanging out here enjoying our Cadillac vaporizer. It's really more a Lamborghini vaporizer, probably.
Yeah, probably. I'd say more in the neighborhood of the Lamborghini.
Yeah. Folks in the chat room during that review were saying, $729, good Lord. I'm not going to spend something like that to get high. I got my little vaporizer. I'm like, well, yeah. I understand. I'm not going to spend $729 either. The only reason it's sitting here is because it's a review one for me, for the show. But I got listeners that could throw $729 at a vaporizer that would want something that looks, elegant and high end, and I can see doing that. Just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, it's a really, really good machine.
I think it's more in the line, slightly ahead of possibly a Volcano. We haven't tried any of the vapor bags yet, so we don't really know.
Yeah. Hey, also, quick little note. Today is the 5th anniversary of the death of the King of Pop. Michael Jackson died 5 years ago today.
Okay.
Another victim of drug dependency.
Correct.
Pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely.
But see, those are prescribed by a doctor, so they're okay, right?
Oh, right. And as a matter of fact, prescribed and administered.
Yeah, prescribed
and administered.
Notice
that doctor went to prison.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so today we'll be featuring a Michael Jackson song on our Irie Wednesday Daily Toker Tunes that is actually Irie. So it'll be kind of cool. We'll be doing that. Also, we're looking forward to this weekend. We're traveling down to the High Times Cannabis Cup in Santa Rosa, California. Me and Larry and Herb will be taking the Cadillac, Larry's Cadillac, down to Medford. We'll be visiting with Lori and Lee Duckworth, who are charged in federal court with operating the dispensary down there. So they're still facing charges. Good news on that front, by the way. My friend Bill Espenson, who ran the 45th Parallel Dispensary out in Ontario, Oregon, was recently sentenced in his federal case and received 140 days in jail, credit for 17 days already served, and 2 years of probation. Now, and if he completes the probation, I believe his felony charges go down to misdemeanors or something. But considering what he was facing, he could have been years and years in prison. Having to do 4 months ain't so bad. So right. Our friend Bill will be out in 4 months. Very, very happy to hear that. Anyway, Cannabis Cup this weekend, and I just got word yesterday that in addition to me, Larry, and Herb Thrasher staying at the Vagabond Inn in Santa Rosa, California for the event, Ganja John got himself a hotel at the same room at the same hotel.
At the Vagabond.
At the Vagabond.
Oh, Ganja John.
Yes, so we'll have Ganja John and his crew there as well, which means us old guys can go party in his room.
Right.
That's our gray beard.
Is he still bringing an RV?
I don't know if he's still bringing an RV or not, but I'm going to call it our gray beard prerogative.
Right.
If we have gray in our beards, then then we get to party in your room. Let the trouble happen there. But we are looking forward to the Cannabis Cup. Mo will be performing on Saturday night at the Cannabis Cup, and they're kind of a jam rock band, so we're looking forward to that because most of these Cannabis Cups, it's all reggae and hip hop. And after a while, you're like, could you book a rock band? This will be the 15th United States Cannabis Cup, the 5th one to take place in San Francisco. So Michael Jackson died, and the first Cannabis Cup happened about the same time.
Right.
Yeah, about the same time. So we're Cannabis Cup number 5. All our friends will be there. I'll be doing a presentation.
First United States one.
Right.
They had them going in Amsterdam.
Yeah, been 26 that have happened in Amsterdam. First United States ones, exactly. And I will be presenting at 4:30 on Saturday on the results of legalization. I'll be taking you through all the data points after 6 months of legal markets and 18 months of legal possession since the passing of legalization in Washington and Colorado. We'll get you all the data points, all the graphs, and show you some of the wild-ass predictions by the doom and gloom naysayers that turned out to be terribly wrong. Absolutely wrong. Can't wait to do that, so looking forward to that. And also, we will be at the Cannabis Cup in Michigan in July. I believe that's the 17th, 18th. No, it's the weekend after, because the weekend before that is Bobby Platshorn's Meet the Experts 3 in Fort Lauderdale. So plenty of travel coming up, and we have this all listed on the 420 Radio calendar. If you go to 420radio.org and click on the schedule button up on the top menu, you can see all the latest programming and when we will be taking trips possibly to your area. And I received word from... excuse me.
Grass, hay. Technically, it's cannabis sativa, the common name, marijuana. She has found a crutch to see her through her difficulties instead of facing up to them and coping with them. And in time, she may be ready to try something different, something better.
Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
420 Radio, freeing your mind 24 hours a day. The Marijuana Business Association, or MJBA, are proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show. It is the mission of the MJBA to establish integrity and legitimacy, create common market standards, provide market intelligence, and develop best ethical business practices for participants in the emerging legal marijuana industry, including commercial hemp, medical marijuana, and recreational marijuana for adults. Learn more about the Marijuana Business Association and visit mjba.net to join today. That's mjba.net. 420radio.org is proud to replay Hemp Radio with Patty Cakes from Orange County, California. Patty Cakes, the Queen of Cannabis, and the crew of Hemp Radio are all veterans of Southern California's medical marijuana activism. Catch the replays at 10 Pacific on 420radio.org. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death. Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face-to-face with the monster of marijuana, he dropped dead from fright. You know, it's not easy countering 7 decades of propaganda in a 2-hour show, but let's try. It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Reefer Madness Debunk.
Yes, folks, we got an extra special mix of Reefer Madness today because it comes from columnist Ruth Marcus for the Washington Post, who's given us so many Reefer Mad gems in the past. This time, though, she went and interviewed someone even more Reefer mad than herself. That would be Nora Volkow, the director of the National Institutes on Drug Abuse. Now, as we go into some of Dr. Volkow's comments about marijuana, keep in mind that when we talk about the Schedule 1 Catch-22, the fact that marijuana is Schedule 1 because there's not enough scientific research to show that it's medical, but we can't get any marijuana to do any scientific research showing that it is medical. Nora Volkow is the woman who makes that happen. Nora Volkow, as the head of National Institutes of Drug Abuse, must approve what the grant money goes to for the study of marijuana and who can get that marijuana from the University of Mississippi pot farm. And we've talked many times in the past about how the National Institutes on Drug Abuse are primarily focused on showing that marijuana is bad, and that 3 out of every 4 research dollars from NIDA that are granted to organizations are then used to find out what's bad about it. And the 1 out of 4 dollars that is supposedly used to find the therapeutic benefits of marijuana, many of those dollars are actually being used to find out how to cure marijuana addiction through the use of synthetic cannabinoids. I'm not making this up. There's actually an NIDA-approved FDA study on using nabilone, which is kind of like a Marinol pill, right? It's a synthetic cannabinoid, of using nabilone to treat people for cannabis addiction. You're addicted to this natural free plant. Here, have a synthetic version of it that costs money. That'll cure you. So keep in mind, as we talk about this woman, Dr. Nora Volkow, and her opinions as written in the Washington Post by Ruth Marcus, keep in mind, this is the woman who controls the research, controls the purse strings on the research for marijuana in this country. So, reading from the Washington Post column, from her perch as head of the National Institute on Drug Abuse in Bethesda, Nora Volkow watches anxiously as the country embarks on what she sees as a risky social experiment in legalizing marijuana. Now, here's her quote. Let's get into the first one. Legal drugs are the main problem that we have in our country as it relates to morbidity and mortality, by far. Many more people die of tobacco than all of the drugs together. Many more people die of alcohol than all of the illicit drugs together. Okay, so far so good, right? We knew that, right? Cigarette smoking kills more people than all drugs combined. Alcohol kills more people than all illegal drugs combined. But check out her rationale for why that's the case. She continues saying, quote, "And it's not because they are more dangerous or addictive, not at all. They are less dangerous. It's because they are legal. The legalization process generates a much greater exposure of people and hence of negative consequences that will emerge." What? I'm sorry, Dr. Volkow. Alcohol and tobacco are toxic and addictive. Now, she might try to make the case that perhaps pharmacologically speaking, smoking cigarettes is safer for you than snorting meth. Pharmacologically speaking, perhaps drinking alcohol is safer for you than shooting heroin. But this is the case of linguistically lumping all drugs together to be able to say something like they are less dangerous, when if we are simply talking about marijuana, and again, that is what we're talking about, isn't it, Nora? Isn't that what was the risky social experiment legalizing marijuana? Then it is an outright falsehood and lie to say that marijuana is more dangerous than alcohol or tobacco. And this idea that they're dangerous because they're legal. As if tobacco wouldn't addict 1 out of 3 people that try it if it were illegal. The legality or illegality of a substance does not change its psychopharmacological nature. Tobacco is still tobacco. It's still just as addictive and deadly, whether it's legal or illegal. The question is, how much more damage is caused to society if we tried to make cigarettes illegal? How much more gang warfare and corruption and violence would exist in the tobacco market, in addition to all the people dying of lung cancer and emphysema, if we tried to make it illegal. And that's the part the prohibitionists never want to address. They want to exist in this world where right now the damage that's exacted from our prohibition of marijuana and other drugs doesn't seem to exist or is never figured in the analysis. Will legalizing marijuana perhaps increase some of the harms of marijuana? It's possible, but that doesn't happen in a vacuum. How many harms of marijuana prohibition went away? That's the important part, because those are much greater than any potential harms that could have been added. It's not that legalization invents marijuana. There are 28 million of us smoking it already. And that's where she goes off on the rest of her quote, where she says, can we as a country afford to have a third legal drug? Can we? It's not a question of having a third legal drug. It's a question of whether or not people have a choice of using something safer than the other two legal drugs. I've never understood this rationale. You know what? We made the two worst drugs legal. That's it. That's your choices. That's all you get. If you're going to follow the law, you get the choice of the one drug that causes lung cancer and kills you, and you get your choice of the other drug that gets you drunk, causes wrecks, makes people violent and belligerent. Those are your choices. You can't choose that plant that's a whole lot safer and a whole lot more mellow. You can't choose that. That's the only question we have here. It's not a question of whether or not legalization is putting a third drug on the menu. All the drugs are on the menu. Anybody who wants to get the drugs can get them. It's a question of how much damage do they do trying to get that drug versus how much good can be done through the regulation and taxation of that drug. Very frustrating. But she goes on. Let's continue. She says, we know the costs already on healthcare. We know the costs on accidents, on lost productivity. I let the numbers speak for themselves. I love that she says that, because then there are no following links for any of the numbers. I'd love to see the numbers. I'd love to hear the numbers speak for themselves. But rarely do these prohibitionists ever put forth any numbers on this supposed cost of healthcare, costs on accidents, costs on lost productivity. The reason they don't put any number dollar value on it is because then you can plug it into all their scaremongering equations and realize that they're full of shit. When somebody like Kevin Sabet comes out and says, well, for every dollar that we bring in on alcohol and cigarette tax revenue, it costs us $10 in social costs, you can say, oh, well, we can figure that out because there's 40 billion in taxes and there's 400 billion in costs. That's a 1-to-10 ratio. It's simple math. So with marijuana, we've brought in $17 million in marijuana taxes in Colorado so far? 17 million, is that right? 19 million, something like that. So does that mean there's been $190 million in damages? You know, they want to say all these anecdotes about, oh, a kid jumped off the balcony, or the woman called 911 and got shot, or all these kids got expelled, or little kids are eating edibles and they end up in the emergency room, or there's more people smoking and driving. Okay. How much does that cost? You got some numbers? Can you quantify that? Did it cost more than $19 million? And any of these costs that they quantify under legalization would also have to be accounted for under prohibition. Again, legalizing doesn't invent. I just said it like, sorry, just had a Christopher Walken moment. Legalizing doesn't, I just amuse myself sometimes. Legalizing doesn't invent these things. So if there was any cost from people smoking pot, lost productivity, healthcare, cost of accidents, we were already spending some money on that. So tell us what that is. Tell us what the cost is right now of people smoking pot. How much does it cost in productivity? How much does it cost in accidents? How much does it cost in healthcare? Then all we need to do is make sure we raise at least that much tax money to cover it. I'm sorry, you'd have to tell us not only how much does it cost now, but what would be the increase after legalization. And the tax money really only has to cover the cost of the increase to break even. Now, it'd be nice if it covered all the costs. But we can never estimate that because the other side will never give us a number. They'll never give us a number because they know once they do, we plug it into the equations and we realize that, oh shit, legalizing marijuana makes a whole lot of sense. They did this in Canada once. They came up with the numbers in Canada, and they found that a pot smoker cost Canada $20 a year. I'm pretty sure we can come up with $20 in marijuana taxes a year. Hell, Washington's going to come up with that in one sale of an eighth. Hey, we got to take a break. It's 4:20 here in the Pacific time zone, and we are required by union rules to engage in a safety meeting. Let's hope you're safe out there, too. We'll be right back.
420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out lushledlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Irie Wednesday, featuring reggae, ska, and other world music genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
Welcome back, everybody. It's 23 after the hour, and we're here with our Irie Wednesday Daily Toker Tunes. Gordon Green isn't calling in today. He's on his summer break, but we will have Gordon Green's Music Planet coming up at 5 o'clock and at 8 o'clock here, and you'll be catching the Music of Brazil episode. So that's in celebration of the World Cup that's happening. Check that out. Gordon Green's Music Planet next on 420 Radio. But coming up now, we want to again remind our listeners that today is the 5th anniversary of the death of Michael Jackson, the king of pop, who died of an overdose of a prescription sedative. And the doctor, Conrad Brown, was found guilty and serving prison time over that. And it was just a tragic loss that underscores that drug addiction can happen to anybody of any status, any stature, and the drug abuse that can really kill is oftentimes not the illegal stuff. Not the heroin, not the cocaine. Oftentimes it can be these prescription drugs because people have this idea that if there's a doctor administering it and it's a legal drug, that somehow it must be safer. Somehow we must be in control. It's important for us to remember there's no good drugs, there's no bad drugs. There's just good and bad relationships with those drugs. And I'm just so sad that such an immense talent like Michael Jackson had so many yes men around him and so many people that were willing to that weren't willing to step up and maybe help him out, that we lost such a great talent. His music will always be remembered from the time he was a little boy all the way through to his death, and even after his death with new tracks from the Escape album being released. I've heard a few of them and they're really, really good. So I figured for today's Irie Wednesday Daily Toker Tunes, we would do our little salute to the king of pop with a reggae version of one of his most famous songs, Human Nature. This is the Easy Star All-Stars featuring Cass Haley.
Looking
just an apple. Then let me take a bite. If they say why, tell them that it's human nature. Why, does he do me that way? If they say why, tell them that it's human nature. Why does he do me that way? Reaching out to touch a stranger. Electric eyes are everywhere. See that girl, she knows I'm watching. She likes the way I say. If they say why, tell them that it's human nature. Why does he do me that way? If they say why, tell them that it's human nature. Why does he do me that way? I like living this way. I like loving this way. Looking out across the morning, the city's heart begins to beat. Reaching out to touch her shoulder, I'm dreaming of the street. If they say why, tell them that it's human nature. Why does he do me that way? If they say why, why does he do me that way? I like living this way.
.420 Radio, your ticket to the High Times Cannabis Cups. Woodpipe Smoke Shop and Speakeasy is your source for cannabis community gear in southern Wisconsin. Owners Brian and Tammy Wood are located in Kendall, just outside of Madison, and they've got everything for the smoking enthusiast. They're open noon to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and can help you with your detoxification therapies as well. Call 608-466-7473 or email woodpipes@yahoo.com for more information. Check out our replay partners every Monday, starting at 10 Pacific with Weeducated Talk Radio from Arizona. At 11 Pacific, we've got Drug Truth Network, Century of Lies from Texas. At 12 Pacific, we've got Weed Porn Daily from Florida. And at 1 Pacific, we've got Stony Sundays from California, right here on 420radio.org. New Approach Oregon is a coalition of Oregon citizens who believe that treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, costing taxpayers millions in law enforcement resources. Our approach will regulate, tax, and legalize marijuana for adults in Oregon. We can move Oregon forward and create new revenue for critical services. Visit our website at newapproachoregon.com or our page on Facebook at New Approach Oregon. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. That's music from 10 Foot Ganja Plant with Mercy. I'm Radical Russ. We're sitting here with Left Wing Larry in the studios. We were just discussing Ruth Marcus's Reefer Madness. Actually, it's Nora Volkow's Reefer Madness. We're still enjoying the Herbalizer Vaporizer. Check out at Herbalize It on Twitter to learn more about the Herbalizer Vaporizer.
By the way, anybody that missed that what's her name? Nora
Volkow?
Nora Volkow was testifying in front of Congress.
Oh, yeah.
Visit my webpage, my homepage on Facebook.
Left Wing Larry.
And you can get the whole thing, the whole darn thing. Just scroll down through on my, I'm sure most of you out there
are. Is that the one where
friends.
Cohen was just tearing her apart?
Cohen ripped her, but they got to arguing between themselves, the panel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And what's his name? The black gentleman that's doing the research in Washington, D.C.
Dr. Carl Hart?
Yeah, Dr. Carl Hart. He ripped her.
Yeah.
And he ripped the senator. I mean, with very, very good points.
You can't mess with Dr. Carl Hart.
No.
Can't mess with him. Now, I have this thing about, presentation, right? Like, the default, if you're going to be an activist, is that you should be suit and tie, short hair as possible, right? That's your default. Then I think you can diverge from that default based on your level of talent, right? Like, Dr. Carl Hart got long dreadlocks, right?
Right.
He also got a PhD from Columbia.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right? Vivian McPeak got long dreadlocks. He's also run the Seattle Hemp Fest for 22 years. Right. You got your bona fides. You can back it up with, your knowledge and your talent and all that. Then go for it. But I always like to counsel people that, if you want to be an activist, start clean cut.
Right.
And then let your talent prove, how much more that you can. Because the thing is people take their cues in communication from the way you look, and they'll automatically set a frame on what they think you're going to say. And to overcome that frame takes talent, right? So if you start off suit and tie, clean cut person, or, for the women, blouse and whatever it is, right? But if you come out looking businesslike, people automatically are going to ascribe to you more seriousness and intelligence than you might already possess. Right. It's like bonus points, right?
A whole lot better than short shorts and a tank top.
Right. Likewise, you come out in tie-dye in a tank top, or a tie-dye tank top and some shorts and sandals, you're already starting negative 10 points behind, right?
Right, exactly.
So if you're going to start negative 10 points behind, you better have enough skills to make up that negative 10 when you're, in public.
Now, Dr. Hart does have the long dreadlocks, but he also dresses very smartly in suit and tie.
Oh, yeah.
He does not come out there in tie-dyes and
right.
That's the reason he's taken seriously.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, there was a doctor that was on the very hostile witness as far as the drug goes, and he was actually a congressman and a doctor.
Yeah.
And he is the one that Dr. Hart ripped because he says, answer me, yes or no. Answer me, yes or no. And Dr. Hart says, No, I'm not going to answer you yes or no. I'm going to explain it to you because you asked me a question, and it takes more than a yes or a no.
Yeah, there we go. That's I always love that when they try to play, lawyer on you, cross-examine,
Sure,
answer in yes or no. Well, the world is not binary. The world is not black and white like that. All right. But anyway, I digress. I had important breaking news that I wanted to get to here. So let's do the breaking news alert. Tomorrow, New Approach Oregon will be turning in 145,000 signatures for marijuana legalization to the Secretary of State's office.
That's just about twice what they need, correct?
Right. It's they would have to have a validity rate of 60% in order to qualify with, I just did the calc, 87,213 valid signatures they need. Turning in more than 145,000 means that if they get a 60% validity rate, they'll have enough to qualify for the ballot. Now, I have heard internal information where they were self-checking their validity rates and they were hitting 70s. Because, of course, they have professionals, because you do it with professionals. So this is going to happen. They must have a typo here because they say it's going to happen Thursday, June 11th. So I know that's not true. It must be tomorrow, which is the 26th. I think they were probably copying and pasting from an old press release and didn't change the date here because this was for immediate release today, June 25th. But they'll be in Salem tomorrow to turn in 145,000 signatures, and then we'll have there's a follow-up. Just to be clear, we mean tomorrow, June 26th. So tomorrow, June 26th, three special things about tomorrow, June 26th. Number one, 145,000 signatures in for the state of Oregon to legalize. Number two, Russ Belville show number 420.
Right.
Number three, my parents' 48th wedding anniversary.
And number four?
We're
leaving for Santa Rosa.
Right. We're leaving for Santa Rosa, that's right. But yeah, tomorrow's my folks' anniversary. I always remember because they were married 2 years longer than I am old, and they are also married as many as their Super Bowls.
And your 420th show coming up on the same day?
Yeah.
It must be kismet.
It's kismet, that's right. It's serendipitous that this would all be happening. So hooray for New Approach Oregon. And that's just, they'll still be collecting more signatures between now and next Thursday. Next Thursday is July 3rd, and that is the last day. So tomorrow they're turning in 145,000 signatures. They still got a week to collect more signatures.
So if there's anybody out there that has not signed that petition yet, that live in the state of Oregon, get out there and sign the petition.
I'd like to see another 30,000 signatures. Wouldn't that be great? They need to have twice as many signatures as they need, and they definitely make the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think Oregon wants us to make the ballot. The only fear I have is a fear of possible low validity rates because there were 3 different petitions going around.
Right. That really got confusing.
Yeah.
That's the reason at the march I signed the one, New Approach Oregon, and I did not sign the other.
Yeah, because when you have 3 initiatives out there that are all for marijuana legalization, one of the problems is if you sign an initiative twice, it invalidates both sheets that you signed on.
The whole sheet.
10 signatures. So signing twice kills 20 signatures. Okay? Now, let's say back in March, you were getting off the Max train as you're going to work, and somebody was there, hey, here's Initiative 53 to legalize marijuana. You want to sign it? Oh, yeah, I'll sign that, and you run off to work. And then 2 months later, you're down at the Saturday market. Hey, I'm here with Initiative 21 and 22 to legalize marijuana. Wait, was that did I already sign that one? Was that the 53 or the 21 or the 22? Now you're not sure if you should sign those other 2. Maybe you don't sign it and it doesn't get signatures. Maybe it happens the other way around. I'm just saying when there was 3 signature drives for one issue, marijuana legalization, it invited more spoiled signature sheets than needed to be. It introduced risk that did not need to happen. And it was easily predictable and was multiply pointed out to the man who made it all possible. Hell, we had a meeting last year. Last year, you weren't even, or 2012, you weren't even here when he went forward with Measure 80. Mm-hmm. There was a big meeting that was called by Students for Sensible Drug Policy that got the leaders of three different initiatives that were all trying, a professional group, Madeline's group, Paul's group. And everybody basically said, hey, we should get behind the professional group. And Paul, you shouldn't do this. And so everybody, all three went ahead with their... Nobody listened. Nobody changed anything. They all three went ahead. Paul ended up getting on the ballot and losing in the year that Washington and Colorado passed. It's not like it was a surprise. It was not like anybody didn't see this script 2 years prior and decided they wanted to change this time. And once again, we got screwed.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to find where those headphones ended. There we go. Anyway, so that's great news. There's going to be 145,000 signatures turned in tomorrow. And maybe we'll get a call in from Anthony Johnson after the turn in, and he can tell us all about it. All right, let me return to Dr. Nora Volkow. In the Washington Post, we were going off on her reefer madness. Absolute crazy stuff going on here. Let's get down to this one. Okay. Nora Volkow says that the notion that legalization represents a modest, cost-free move is dangerously overblown. The evidence on the supposed safety of marijuana, particularly marijuana in its modern, far more potent form, is far from clear. Here's what she says, quote, when you're intoxicated, your memory and learning are going to go down. When you are intoxicated, your motor coordination is going to go down. When you are repeatedly using marijuana, there's an increased risk for addiction. And if you're an adolescent and you're taking marijuana, there's an higher increased risk for addiction, and there is also a higher risk for long-lasting decreases in cognitive capacity. That is, lowering of IQ. All right, there's that one again, right? Sorry, not true. But the first part I notice in this is that she keeps saying intoxication. Intoxication. Marijuana is not intoxicating. It's impairing. It's inebriating. It's euphoric. It's not intoxicating. Intoxicating is a word that has the word toxic in it for a reason. Intoxication is the process of poisoning your brain and body. Marijuana is not poisonous in any way. But let's just address the meat of what she's saying here. Your memory and learning are going to go down when you're intoxicated. All right, I'm willing to concede that if I get high as balls, I might have trouble remembering things while I'm high as balls.
I would.
While I'm high, though. Once I'm not high, no problem with memory. And also, it begs the question, what is high? I was reading another piece. This was off of Christian Post, and I won't have enough time to get to it today. But there was this part in Christian Post where they referred to Ephesians 5:18, the Bible's warning against drunkenness. But this guy who's writing about it says, granted, a person might drink a glass of wine at dinner and not become intoxicated. But what about marijuana? Isn't intoxication the main point of using marijuana for recreational purposes? It's that standard ignorance that Dr. Nora Volkow brings into this argument. Of course, at the very end, she says, I've never smoked pot, whereas she says, I've never taken marijuana. But I'm tired of people who've never smoked pot opining on what being high is when they have absolutely no frame of reference for it. Their frame of reference is, well, you can go to dinner and you can drink a glass of wine without becoming intoxicated. Okay, yeah. So why are you drinking the glass of wine? Just for the taste of it? Then why not have grape juice? Why not have any other beverage? These people who say that we just drink for the social part of it and we don't get intoxicated, I challenge them to have all of the rest of their parties alcohol-free and see how much you're not getting intoxicated, how fun that is. The point that we're trying to make here is that while you understand this massive spectrum of alcohol use that ranges from the glass of wine at dinner, to the social drink, to the nightcap, to the party, to getting tipsy, to getting buzzed, to getting drunk, to getting shit-faced, to passing out, a similar spectrum exists for marijuana. When Larry and I are down here with our Thai stick vaporizer pens, and I take a puff on it, I am not high. I did not go from 0, perfectly sober, to, hey, wow, man, I'm so fucking baked. It's not the way it works. Just like the glass of wine, just like the occasional beer, marijuana consumers often consume marijuana to be social and not to reach an extremely high state. In fact, we are starting to see now with marijuana legalization, there's a company, and I met them up at that MJBA thing up in Washington State. There's a company called Sitka that makes your father's Woodstock weed. They make pre-rolled cigarettes, pre-rolled marijuana cigarettes in a pack that are 3.5% THC. Literally, your father's Woodstock weed, right? Because that's all they're saying. It's always 3%, 4%, right? Nobody would try to sell that in the illegal market. Nobody would say, hey, man, I got a bag for you, man. It's like really weak. It's like 3.5% THC, man. You want to get some? That would never happen. Prohibition forces these things to become more potent.
Well, it does happen back east, I can tell you.
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Not on purpose, right? But this is the thing. They need to understand, Dr. Volkow and these people need to understand that there is a range when we're talking about marijuana use. It's not just high and not high. There's all sorts of different levels in between. The sooner they can understand that, the more we can have a reasonable dialogue on marijuana legalization. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. We'll finish up with this Nora Volkow stuff.
Continue the conversation with Radical Russ online. Visit radicalruss.com and email radicalruss@gmail.com.
Also, if we have the time, we'll talk about how the cops now are getting a little wary of just chopping up every pot plant they find and ripping it out of the ground.
Money.
Yeah, people keep suing them.
Yeah.
Amazing what money will do for you. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on 420 Radio.
.420 Radio, turning red states and blue states green.
The pistachio. Green, natural, and available without prescription in all 50 states. He's fine.
Welcome back. That's music from The Green. Come In, featuring Jacob Hemphill of Soja. So we're concluding with more of Nora Volkow's Reefer Madness in the Washington Post. So we left off, she talked about when you're repeatedly using marijuana, there's an increased chance of addiction. Ooh. You really scare me, Nora. You know, when I was a kid, I watched my dad try to kick speed and alcohol cold turkey. So I'm really frightened about this marijuana addiction you're talking about.
Dr. Hart already ripped her on that.
Did he?
Yes, he did.
What'd he say?
He said basically that, repeat it again, what did she say about
She says, when you are repeatedly using marijuana, there's an increased risk of addiction. And if you're an adolescent and you're taking marijuana, there is a higher increased risk of addiction.
Okay. What Dr. Hart said is there's 28 million examples out there of people, and that is the percentage you get with 28 million smokers. It doesn't change.
Yeah.
It doesn't change whether you're a frequent user, a weekend user, or what. It doesn't change your percentages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The data do not bear out this idea. And even if it did, here's the thing. It's like, take these drug warriors. Like sometimes if you're in a drug war debate, they might throw a fact or a stat at you, some scientific study or whatever. And you know it's bullshit, but you don't have anything on hand to really like refute it well, right? Mm-hmm. You always have a default fallback position. And the default fallback position is, no matter how bad you say marijuana is, do you think locking people up in a cage is going to fix that? Right? So they come out and they say this thing, oh, well, the kids could have a 8-point IQ loss. The response is, okay, do you think that we'll cure that by locking up adults who smoke marijuana? Do you think that's the right thing to do? Now, that can buy you some time sometimes to try and figure out what you want to say about the IQ thing. This thing has been debunked numerous times. Basically, they found that socioeconomic factors are just as valid an explanation for any sort of IQ decline. And we've also gotten recent information, this just came out of King's College in London this week, that found a genetic predisposition for schizophrenia leads people to cannabis. The genes for schizophrenia also influence people to want to use cannabis. They found people who had the genetic predisposition for schizophrenia, whether they developed schizophrenia or not, were not only more likely to smoke marijuana, but if they did, were more likely to smoke more of it. So, if we've got a self-selecting population of people who are more likely to have mental health issues in their background, that could also explain why we might find lower IQs among that population.
Exactly.
There's so many confounders in this, but then you can always just go back to the fact of like, okay, let's pretend there would be massive cognitive declines. That a kid who's got a 100 IQ might end up with a 98 or 92 IQ. Explain to me how functionally different his life will be between a 100 IQ and a 92 IQ. Right? Kid with a 100 IQ, maybe he's not using his brain so much. Maybe he's a football player, right? Does the 8-point IQ drop really make that much of a difference? This idea that we ought to set our laws based on whether or not something might be detrimental to kids doesn't work out so well if you start applying it to other substances. We start talking about that with sugar, fat, other substances, how they could cause childhood obesity, so let's ban Big Macs. Adults can't have Big Macs anymore because kids might get fat. So it doesn't work with other substances so well.
You know, there's another aspect to that also. I defy anybody to find me an activist that's pushing for legalization that want teenagers to use it.
Right.
We're all saying don't let them use it.
Yeah.
So what the hell does whether a teenager uses it or not fit into the discussion when they don't want teenagers to use it, we don't want them to use it, so why in the hell argue over it?
Well, here's what she says about that. She says that those are actually two contradictory arguments. She says that marijuana is already available to teenagers who want it, and that the new laws and impose strict controls on sales to minors. And she is trying to say that it's two different things. That you can't say that kids can get pot easily now, and then also say by legalizing it we're going to make it harder for kids to get. Yes, we can. There's nothing contradictory. Nothing contradictory about that at all. An illegal prohibitive market means that there's no licenses to revoke from the drug dealer when he doesn't check the ID of the kid he's selling to.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I dare Nora Volkow to show me any examples of high school tequila dealers. There are no high school tequila dealers. There's no profit in it. It can't. That's what we're aiming at here. The fact that we have a prohibitive market means that only criminals, cartels, and kids can be involved with the business side of the market. If we allow legitimate businessmen to become on the business side of the market, they're better at it. They're businessmen. They'll know how to make better profits and cut corners and cut margins and reduce, production prices and all of that. The prohibition market encourages those prices to stay high. In fact, people like Nora Volkow and these drug warriors will tell you that's part of the success of keeping marijuana illegals.
Right,
it makes it expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So this will completely undo a teenager's ability to make a profit. That's what we're looking to attack. But here's the killer. Here's the one. This was the quote that I read this when I went, oh my. The Reefer Madness is thick here. Get your waders. Ruth Marcus challenged Nora Volkow, saying, yeah, pot's bad, but, cigarettes. We don't want our kids smoking cigarettes. And Volkow responded with this. Wait a second. Nicotine does not interfere with cognitive ability. So if you're an adolescent and you're smoking marijuana and go to school, it's going to interfere with your capacity to learn. So what is worse as an adolescent right now? To have basically something that is jeopardizing your development educationally, or to smoke a cigarette that, when you're 60 years of age, is going to lead to impaired pulmonary function and perhaps cancer? I would argue that you do not want to mess with your cognitive capacity, that is a very large price to pay. End quote. I believe Nora Volkow just said that your teenage kids would be better off smoking cigarettes than smoking pot.
Exactly. It's exactly what she said.
Wow. It's just amazing. It's just, smell that. Take it all in. That's some Reefer Madness there. I'd rather have my kids smoking tobacco cigarettes that they'll get addicted to and have a lifelong addiction to that'll be difficult as hell to quit, that'll cost them hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month possibly, will require some sort of pharmaceutical smoking cessation kit, patch, pill, gum. I'd much rather they go through that than, maybe smoke a joint at a party on the weekend. Wow. It's amazing. Now, I'm not advocating that teenage kids ought to be getting high before school or puffing vapor pens in the back of their classrooms or anything like that. It's not responsible use. But this idea that kids that smoke pot would be better off smoking cigarettes, coming from someone who heads the National Institutes of Drug Abuse, it's pretty frightening. But her rationale behind all of it, she says, quote, our kids are sensitive to norms, so if they feel that marijuana is harmful, their consumption goes down. Legalization sends the opposite message. So the argument then is that we need to lie to kids about what marijuana does, and we need to arrest and prosecute and imprison the adults who use it to send a message to kids that it's terribly, terribly bad so that they won't use it. That's all we got to do. All we got to do is arrest 850,000 people a year. Most of them black and Latino. Most of them under age 30. Most of them for possession alone. And then tell a bunch of lies about marijuana. And then the kids will think it's awful and they won't use it. That's all we got to do is just lie and imprison people. That's all. That's the best public policy option you got, Nora? For shame. That's all the time we got. Thanks for joining us. Remember, tomorrow is show number 420. And then we're off to the Canvas Cup and off for a week. It's our annual summer break, 4th of July weekend. Headed to the Portland Waterfront Blues Festival. Man, I get to see Greg Allman and Boz Scaggs and Los Lobos and Los Lonely Boys and a bunch of people. It's going to be fun.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
For Priscilla Simon and Left Wing Larry, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Gordon Green's Music Planet is next. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it,